3, 2, 1. Ba-ba-ba. Oh, you know what I completely forgot to do? You know what I completely forgot to do? And I can definitely do it. Give me a second here. Where is it? Where is it? Bingo card. Open with. Come on, where is it? Open with. Where the heck is open with? For God's sakes. I'm starting this off really badly. Okay, I can't find it, so we're just going to do it this way. Terrible way to begin this cast, but there it is. We did it anyway. We made it. Hey, Cotton, how you doing? Dude? Emotions. If you tuned in for yesterday's cast, you know that I am just a ball of emotions these days. And I think the big realization I had today is like, I am not ready to get into another relationship. I'm just not ready for it. Like maybe like some little light dating or something like that, but I'm definitely not ready to get into another relationship, and that people are right to not want to get into a relationship with me right now. I think that's the big realization that I've had. That like, I feel like I'm just gonna blow it every time right now. That I'm not emotionally ready to be in a relationship with another person, and that's been tough. That was a tough realization today. To like realize that like I had tried to start up a relationship and I just blew it up and I botched it so badly, and it was completely my fault. And I had a really frank conversation with a coworker who's been like a really big supporter of mine, and I really value him. And we had a real frank discussion about it, and I really realized that like, yeah, if I had just like asked this woman out on a date and then done nothing, literally done nothing, and just waited for her to come to me and say, and spend time with me, and just done nothing, I would have been better off. But instead of that, I just got in my own way and made bad decisions and was very stupid. Because, and I think I understand, like I was in a relationship for 10 years with someone. And so I wanted to be there again. I wanted to be sending emails or little funny things and having discussions and all this kind of stuff. But like, that's not how it actually works. It's not how dating actually works. And so it's just brutal. It was brutal. And that doesn't mean I'm not going to keep looking around, like get on Plenty of Fish and like take a look around and all that kind of stuff, because I feel like I should keep doing it, but I just am like, oof. I'm emotionally in a very tough spot right now. Honestly, like this whole week, this whole weekend, this whole thing, this whole experience has been very emotional for me. I've been on an emotional roller coaster, and I'm hoping that it's going to end now. I'm hoping that like now that I've acknowledged how fucking stupid I've been and how I could do better, I think I can do better. I'm going to try to do better, because I feel like that's all you can do, right? That's all you can do. Anyway, you guys don't tune in to hear my stories of love woe, but just so you know right off the top, for those of you listening at home, I'm a bit of an emotional wreck at the moment. And which is great, because I'm also streaming on TikTok. So I'm sure that the TikTok kiddies are going to come in, and I'm absolutely going to be completely nice to them. I'm going to be so nice to the TikTok people as they come on in. I'm absolutely sure that that's going to happen. We'll see. It's so weird, eh? Like, all I really want is just someone to cuddle with. Like, really? You know, not too difficult, but apparently. So, let's pop in right away to one of today's news articles. Good to see you, by the way, guys. Good to see you, Stas. Good to see you, Nova Scotia. Broccoli Cheddar. Anemone, a pleasure as always. Looking to see Content if I didn't say hello. How you guys all doing? I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that you guys are here. You're always just a real standby, man. Yeah, of course, Anemone. I will admit, having someone to cuddle with every night. I'm on live chat. Here, top chat, live chat. I'm on live chat. Yeah, and in Emily, I think the real thing that happened with me is like I just was moving too fast. Like it really is that simple. I was just moving too fast and trying to kind of reclaim something that I had for a long time, for like 10 years. You know, trying to reclaim something that that's way too much. That's way too much. It's got to be a slow drip. And I think the thing I think about it that really hurt me is that like it was the first time that I really had that kind of flutter feeling about anybody. Like that's the death knell. And the thing that made me realize it, that like, oh, I've got some healing and growing to do myself, is that I asked her out and she said yes, and I had this like real flutter feeling, and it was like just that wonderful sort of feeling. And so I feel like that whisked me away. And it basically took everything over, and I lost command of it. You guys know what I say, right? I say it all the time on this channel, and it's absolutely true. We essentially react to our emotions and then post-rationalize, right? And I am no different. I'm no different. And I just feel like I allowed my emotions to whisk me away, and I was just like, oh, the sweetness of the fluttering of the puppy love and all that kind of ridiculous nonsense, and just fucking... It ruined the whole thing. It ruined the whole thing. Because I didn't have a grip on it. I didn't have a grip on it. Sputnik says, Dow down 700. Yeah, we're fucked. Like the whole thing is a catastrophe, right? Like, what should I report on? U.S. food additives banned in Europe. Expert says what Americans eat is almost certainly making them sick. From baguettes to focaccia, Europe is famous for its bread, but there's one ingredient conspicuously missing: potassium bromide. It's a suspected carcinogen that's banned for human consumption in Europe, China, and India, but not in the United States. In the United States, the chemical compound is used by some food makers, usually in the form of fine crystals or powder, to strengthen the dough. It's estimated to be present in more than 100 products. There is evidence that it may be toxic to human consumers, that it may even either initiate or promote the development of tumors. Professor Eric Millstone, an expert on food additives at England's University of Sussex, told CBS News. He said European regulators take a much more cautious approach to food safety than their U.S. counterparts. Asked if they can be said with certainty that differences in regulations mean people in the U.S. have developed cancers that they would not have developed if they've been eating exclusively in Europe, Millstone said that was almost certainly the conclusion that we could reach. It's not just potassium bromate. A range of other chemicals and substances banned in Europe over health concerns are also permitted in the United States, including titanium dioxide, also known as E171, brominated vegetable oil, potassium bromate, azodicarbonamide, and propylparaben. How's that for a word? Millstone, who spent almost half a century researching food and agricultural science, said most Americans were likely completely unaware that they were being exposed on a daily basis to substances in their food viewed as dangerous in Europe. They probably just think, well, if it's available or it's in the store, it's probably fine, he said. In a statement to CBS News, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration said all food additives require pre-market evaluation, and regulations require evidence that each substance is safe as its intended level of use before it may be added to foods. Post-approval, our scientists continue to review relevant new information to determine whether there are safety questions and whether the use of such substance is no longer safe, the agency added. Stacy McNamara is from upstate New York, but she has lived in London for a decade. She said raising children in the UK had opened her eyes to what's allowed in foods in the US. McNamara has no plans to ever move back home, and she told CBS News that food safety was for sure a part of that decision. In a statement to CBS News, the FDA said that when used properly, potassium bromate converts into a harmless substance during food production. The FDA acknowledged, however, that not all of the compound used in any given recipe may convert during the production process, but that control measures were utilized to minimize the amount in final products. So they've minimized the amount of poison. They've minimized the amount of poison. Like, do you understand what you are reading? Do you understand what you just heard? Like, they do not care about us here in the West. They are happy to poison us. They are poisoning our food. They are poisoning our air. They are poisoning the water. They are poisoning everything in this manic, crazed, absurd, ridiculous, lunatic quest to put numbers on screens. That's what this is all about. And it's insane. The more you actually think about it, the more you actually see what is happening around you, the more you recognize that you live in an insane world that is led by pretty obvious psychopaths. Like, they're literally putting carcinogens in our food pretty straightforwardly. Evening, comrades. Good to see that guy. Good to see you, Command Genius. Mr. Comer, good to see you. What do you think about colonialism? I think colonialism is bad. I think that we should stop going into nations that we don't know anything about and enslaving their populations and stealing their resources. I think that that's a bad thing to do. And in the long term, it is self-destructive. You can't actually build a society on those principles. You can try, and maybe for a period of time, you can have like a little glimpse, like a single generation, like the boomer generation, that does fairly well. You can have like a class of people who become very wealthy. But eventually, the reason why colonialism fails as an idea is because as the system collapses, the methods that the empire uses to maintain itself abroad, it will begin to use domestically. That it doesn't know how to control unrest, and it doesn't know how to deal with a populace outside of using violent force, outside of using control mechanisms, outside of impoverishing the countries, outside of doing those sorts of things. It literally doesn't know how to do anything else. And you're going to see that happen in America. That as the American empire begins to collapse and recede, all of the people who are operating abroad are going to come home and begin operating domestically in the same way. And this is what happens when empires decline. This is what happens when colonial empires decline. And it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be very, very brutal. Like, that's why I have memes like trying to explain to my parents very gently that basically nobody under 40 right now expects good things to happen ever again. And if you're really honest with yourself, you know why that is. It's because we have ceded control of everything to people who are happily poisoning us. And we've got to come around on this stuff. The ruling class doesn't give a fuck about us at all. Like, the Ohio derailment should show you that. Like, Biden traveled, 8,000 kilometers to go to Ukraine, but can't be arsed to go to Ohio? Right? Like, it's a non-event as far as the ruling class is concerned. As far as the ruling class is concerned, the destruction of an American town by an American corporation using toxic chemicals is a complete non-event. It doesn't matter. We can completely sidestep it. We can completely disregard it. But boy, howdy, do we ever have to send Biden over there to say hello to Zelensky. Boy, howdy, do we ever have to go over there and say hello to Zelensky in Ukraine. We absolutely have to do that. While we're pumping out absolute propaganda pieces, like absolutely stunning propaganda pieces coming out of places like CBS News. Juan, good to see you, but the WAF said that we'd be happy in this new world that they want for us. Yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe stupefied, like happy and a kind of like, oh, well, wow, yeah, like maybe in that kind of way. Like they'll spew so many chemicals into the atmosphere that we'll just lose the ability to feel anything except a kind of like, oh, we'll be like so deprived of oxygen that we'll just become like, oh, whoa, we'll just become lightheaded, dim-witted idiots. That seems to be the goal, right? Just fill us up with so many chemicals that we lose the capacity to feel sad. We'll just be like basically dumb cows just grazing food, like in cages, too stupid to realize that we're being completely screwed over. Like that seems to be the happy that the WEF is talking about. Here's an article from CBS News. Putin falsely claims it was the West that started the war in Ukraine almost a year after he ordered invasion. Russian President Vladimir Putin accused Western countries Tuesday of igniting and sustaining the war in Ukraine, dismissing any blame for Moscow almost a year after the Kremlin's unprovoked is cute, invasion of its neighbor that has killed tens of thousands of people. In his long-delayed State of the Nation address, Putin cast Russia and Ukraine as victims of Western double-dealing and said Russia, not Ukraine, was the one fighting for its very existence. We aren't fighting the Ukrainian people, Putin said in a speech days before the war's first anniversary on Friday. Ukraine has become hostage of the Kiev regime and its Western masters, which have effectively occupied the country. The speech reiterated a litany of grievances that the Russian leader has frequently offered as justification for the widely condemned war and ignored international demands to pull back from occupied areas in Ukraine. Observers are expected to scour it for signs of how Putin sees the conflict, which has become bogged down, and what tone he might set for the year ahead. The Russian leader vowed no military let-up in Ukrainian territories he has illegally annexed, apparently rejecting any peace overtures in a conflict that has reawakened fears of a new Cold War. Instead, he offered his personalized version of recent history, which discounts arguments by the Ukrainian government that it needed Western help to thwart a Russian military takeover. I mean, just ignore the coup, right? Just ignore the 2014 coup. You can say what you like. Western elites aren't trying to conceal their goals to inflict a strategic defeat to Russia, Putin said in the speech broadcast by all state TV channels. They intend to transform the local conflict into a global confrontation. He added that Russia is prepared to respond to that as it will be a matter of our country's existence. While the Constitution mandates that the president deliver the speech annually, Putin never gave one in 2022 as his troops rolled into Ukraine and suffered repeated setbacks. Gotta add that, suffered repeated setbacks, even though they've taken over a third of the country. Before the speech, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that the Russian leader would focus on the special military operation in Ukraine, as Moscow calls it, and Russia's economy and social issues. Many observers predicted it would also address Moscow's fallout with the West, and Putin began with strong words for those countries. It is they who have started the war, and we are using force to end it, Putin said before an audience of lawmakers, state officials, and soldiers who have fought in Ukraine. Putin accused the West of launching aggressive information attacks and taking aim at Russian culture, religion, and values because it is aware that it is impossible to defeat Russia on the battleground. He also accused Western nations of waging an attack on Russia's economy with sanctions, but declared that they hadn't achieved anything and will not achieve anything. Putin also said that Russia would suspend its participation in a treaty aimed at keeping a lid on nuclear weapons expansion. The so-called New START treaty was signed by Russia and the U.S. in 2010. It caps the number of long-range nuclear warheads they can deploy and limits the use of missiles that can carry atomic weapons. Putin said it was not fully withdrawing from the treaty yet. He said Russia must stand ready to resume nuclear weapons tests if the U.S. does so. Underscoring the anticipation ahead of time, some state TV channels put a countdown for the event starting Monday, and Russia's state news agency, RIA Novosti, on Monday morning said the address may be historic. The Kremlin this year was barred media from unfriendly countries, the list of which includes the US, the UK, and those in the EU. Peskov said journalists from those nations will be able to cover the speech by watching the broadcast. Peskov told reporters that the speech's delay had to do with Putin's work schedule, but Russia's media reports linked it to multiple setbacks, yabba, 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 on and on. This is the type of stupid commentary that is dumbing us down really badly. Like, we are being dumbed down very, very badly with this kind of really stupid commentary that all you have to do is completely ignore what NATO was doing in Ukraine on the lead up to the war and call it an unprovoked invasion, and you can say basically what you like. And the hard reality is that the vast majority of the world, that's China, India, Africa, South America, Latin America, the Middle East, think Putin is correct and agree with what Putin is saying about what is happening in Ukraine. And that it is and all these newspapers are doing, all CBS is doing by publishing an article like this, is dramatically revealing in dramatic ways that they are simply stenographers for the State Department. They have no credibility whatsoever. They respond and report directly to the CIA. They are not interested whatsoever in what is actually true and what is factually correct. They are exclusively taking notes from the State Department and the military-industrial complex and disseminating that propaganda into the populace. And it is making us stupid. It's making us much stupider. And we're not going to be able to respond to what's going on in the world. We're not going to be able to understand what's happening in the world if we continue acting this stupidly. And that's my big concern. Like I say it over and over on this channel, we are in a trifecta of collapse. The trifecta of collapse, one of the main pillars of it, of the unholy trinity of the capitalist death cult, is the worship of stupidity. And you're seeing that worship of stupidity in articles like this. Who could possibly believe, when presented with even the most basic facts of what was happening in Ukraine on the lead up, that war was unprovoked? Who could possibly justify publishing seriously an article that says the Kremlin's unprovoked invasion of its neighbor? Who could possibly justify this? Yeah, Fabala, I think people have no idea what NATO has been doing generally. Also, hello to you, Fabala. I think that's correct. That we are in a period of time where what the most important thing to assure is that the populace is rendered stupid, is made stupefied. It's to ensure that no one understands what's happening at all, and that they just keep pumping out stuff that is obviously flagrantly false. Like, obviously flagrantly false, right? The information is easily accessible, right? You just need to read up on the Euro-Maidan crisis, right? Like, and what's so shocking about this whole thing is that America has been coupping governments all over the world constantly, yearly, just constantly coupping governments. Government after government after government after government after government. Literally 5 coup attempts in Africa alone last year. But for some reason there's this mental block. And we all know what that mental block is. That, America wouldn't do that to a white nation. That's what the mental block is. That if you do it to a nation full of brown people or full of East Asian people, right? Then, that's America being America. What do? Shrug. I'm going to go to the movies. Right, whatever. But if America does it to a group of white people, that's impossible. That's unheard of, right? It's got that's ridiculous, right? But that's exactly what they did. That they fomented a coup in Ukraine, 2014, during the Euro-Maidan crisis, with the help of Nazi street gangs, and then integrated those Nazi street gangs into the military. That's the Azov Battalion. You can look all this up. It's easy to find. And the idea that you can actually read the parliamentary minutes and actually go into the Parliament of Russia and see them discussing openly the conflict that was happening on their border created by NATO, and that it was the communists within the Russian government that were pushing Putin and swaying public opinion towards doing this. And like, Putin didn't want to do it. That much is very clear. He waited 8 years to do it. He pursued literally every diplomatic avenue he possibly could have done. And it's ridiculous to say otherwise. Like, childish to say otherwise. Like, he was attempting to do the Minsk Accords, which Zelensky now says he was never going to abide by. He was attempting to engage in diplomacy directly with the United States. He was attempting to do diplomacy with NATO and European nations. He was desperately trying to find a diplomatic solution to this crisis, and it's obvious that NATO refused to allow it to happen. What you are seeing is a result of the United States, no doubt. And it's backfiring badly. It's backfiring badly. Like, the only people who actually take this idea seriously, that Russia, it was an unprovoked invasion. The only people who actually seriously say it was an unprovoked invasion are Westerners. And that's becoming more and more a smaller and smaller minority of people. And that the vast majority of the world's population is in line with what Putin is saying. And of course, the crazed Western response to this, and it's absolutely crazed what I'm seeing, is that, well, yeah, who cares what they say? Like, who cares what they say? Like, we are actually seeing, like, a rise of casual fascism. That people are happy that America is sending its military bases around the world. People are happy that we are subjugating East Asian countries. People are happy that we are cooing governments. That it's steadily becoming like, well, yeah, so what if we coup them? Like, what are they going to do, right? And they're better off for us cooing them, right? They're just barbarians anyway, right? Like, it's getting absolutely fucking ridiculous. Show that Vijay TikTok video I shared in Discord. I just don't have the sound set up in Emily. Sorry, I just don't have the sound set up, and then it wouldn't play on TikTok as well. I know I'm pretty down on tech. I gotta get my tech game going on, but I just don't like. I don't know. Like, I don't know what it's going to take for people. Did you hear the Epstein Papers or whatever they're called came out the other day? Yes, I did. Another huge story that everybody is just kind of ignoring, that the Epstein Papers came out, and it was a partial list, so we still have to assume they're all in on it, right? And it was a list of mainly celebrities, right? So the power structure is getting scared. They know they're getting scared. They know that they know the Jeffrey Epstein scandal is going to be their undoing, and even the partial list that they released, in my view, is the death of American culture. That literally, I am like going through the socials or just trying to spend time looking around, and I'm seeing literal pedophiles, people I now consider rapists and pedophiles, being presented to me as if I'm supposed to still take them seriously. And they're not insignificant cultural people. Like, we're talking about people like Eminem, Oprah, Tom Hanks. Like, Tom Hanks, for Christ's sakes, like America's sweetheart darling boy, is involved in all of this, including people like Bill Clinton, Bill Gates. Come here, buddy. Come here, buddy. Come here, buddy. Come here, buddy. Come here, right man. Come say hello to TikTok. Say hello to TikTok. TikTok, TikTok, TikTok. And so this Epstein scandal that is actually happening, is the death of American culture. Like, the rest of the world is not going to tolerate. They're not going to accept, the rest of the world is not going to be like, oh, Oprah, yeah, she's a superstar. We've got to actually listen to Oprah, right? No, you don't. You straight up don't. That Oprah, for all her, like, you got to use the secret. Well, you know what Oprah's secret was? Oprah's secret was that she was raping children on Epstein's island. Or at least turning a blind eye to it while she hobnobbed with rapists. Like, this is, people are insisting that it's a forgery because it's just full of people who criticize Trump. Like, what, people are looking for any excuse. People are looking for any excuse. Like people will absolutely decline into a total absurdity. Like they will. Like even if it is a forgery. Like think about it this way, right? If it is a forgery, and you're talking about a forgery that's coming out at the highest possible level, so it literally could be the CIA just being like, let's just throw a bunch of celebrities under the bus. Let's destroy our entire culture such that it exists. Let's basically indict all of our celebrities, the wealthiest celebrities certainly, people like Tom Hanks, people like Oprah, right? People like Eminem. Like, let's take this group of people who are at the highest level, but they're celebrities, and throw them all under the bus in order to protect the fact that J.P. Morgan Chase, I think it was J.P. Morgan Chase, one of the big banks, Jamie Dimons, yeah, J.P. Morgan Chase, was basically a money launderer for Epstein. Like, we've got articles that are talking all about that as well. So we're literally living in a society where our largest banks are acting as money launderers for a pedophile rape ring, and our highest level culture generators, whatever you want to call them, like the highest level of culture that exists, are also involved in it as well. Like, if you don't think this requires, at the bare minimum, a massive investigation with people being brought in, like a full-scale, like Stalin-esque style purge, like if you don't think that that's what this requires, then I think there's something wrong with your brain. Like, I really do. I think there's just something wrong with your brain, and you need to just sit down and sit this one out. You're allowing your emotions to take over. And you're not actually looking at what is real and what is actually happening in front of you. But we're such a ass backwards people. Like, we're such an ass backwards people. Like, I saw something just the other day. Where the hell was it? I thought I had it right here. Yeah, here we go. China's wind and solar are almost enough to power every home. I'll read it again. This is February 14th, Happy Valentine's Day, 2023 by Bloomberg. China's wind and solar are now almost enough to power every home. Like, we are going to fall behind dramatically. That the exponential growth of renewable energies, the exponential growth of non-fossil fuel energies that China is generating in 5 or 10 years is going to make us look like babies. We are going to be very stupid. Like, and who are we going to turn to when we have to start transferring our grid? Who are we going to turn to? Will it be China? Will we be saying, hey, China, can we get access to those solar panels that you've been making for 30 years? Can we get access to that technology that you've been investing all of your time and resources in for the past 30 years? And we are in this absolutely asinine, absurd. Yeah, it turns out it's profitable to invest in the people. Who knew? Who fucking knew? The communists knew. The communists understood it. And yet here we are tolerating this nonsense, and it's because we're trying to protect people who are literally going to a fucking pedophile island. Like, it's insane what we're doing. It's madness what we're doing. And while this is all going on, we're all just trying to live our lives. We're all just trying to build relationships, have normal human experiences. We're just trying to get laid, find love. We're all trying to do all of this kind of stuff. And while we're doing all of that kind of stuff, there's this looming pedophile death cult that's actively destroying the country in front of your eyes, pumping out absolute asinine propaganda, like this dumb bullshit, talking about an unprovoked war. Meanwhile, we're funneling like billions and billions of dollars. Like, we funneled more money into the Ukraine war than we will ever funnel into refurbishing the railways throughout the United States. We're just going to accept that there's going to be big, gigantic chemical explosions. We're just going to accept that that's the case. Just like we accept how there's mass shootings, just how we accept that there's a fentanyl crisis, just how we accept that there's a homeless crisis, just how we accept that there is a decline in the living standards across America, just how we accept that there's poison in our food, just how we accept all of it. We're just going to experience this massive, sweeping decline. It'll be like getting on a slide. We'll just decline so swiftly, and we're all just going to what? Shrug about it? We're all just going to fucking shrug about it? Like, one of the crazy things that I think is going to happen is like, with the rise of AI and the rise of all this technology simultaneously, you're going to have huge layoffs, right? And it'll be literally waiters will be the people who are considered like, oh, he's got a good job, he's a waiter. Because he actually deals with people, and he actually walks around dealing with people. Whoa. Crisis is pretty strong language. More issue? No, I would say it's a crisis, Generation Y Me. Like, I mean, these are, like, what we are experiencing is one gigantic crisis, and it's called capitalism. It's the crisis of capitalism. And if we don't actually listen to the people who have successfully rid themselves, even temporarily, of capitalist interference, we're going to eat it. We're going to eat it, and it's going to be bad. It's going to be really, really bad for us. And the best that we're going to be able to do is just sort of hunker down and just try to make it on through. And articles like this, right, like from the Beaverton, this is a great Beaverton headline. In order to retire, average Canadian will need to set aside 100% of income every month. That's basically how that feels like. That we are experiencing just a straight up robbery. And it's happening in front of our eyes, and we're all just like, yep, better vote for it. And in the meantime, here in Canada, who's the front runner? Oh, it's the Conservatives, the one who want to make it worse. The ones who want to make it worse. Like this is the shocking thing. That here in Canada, the party that is literally going, oh yeah, we're going to privatize, right? That's what all of the provinces, all the provincial Conservatives are doing. We're going to privatize. We're going to make everything worse, right? We're going to make everything more expensive. We're going to ensure that you get less service for more money, right? They're the ones that are in the lead. Like, what can be even said about this? What can anybody even say about this anymore? It's like we just want to we want it. It's like we want it. Content, that's a Beaverton article, so it's a satire. But like, it's getting more and more difficult for me to believe that anything other than that we want it. Like, we want to experience this collapse. We want to experience this decline. We want to experience all of these sorts of difficulties. Urban Chaos Girl, good to see you. Like, what else could it be? It's like we have inside of our hearts sort of a beckoning call for the wild and the wilderness and the chaos. But the Chinese didn't interfere in our last election to support the Conservatives too much, so they must be the right party. Yeah. All of that shit is bullshit. All of that just like foreign interference, Chinese interference, Russian interference, it's all total bullshit. Like, it's all total fucking bullshit. That again, it's just showing us that the propaganda system works. You got Russiagate. Russiagate absolutely discredits the entire media apparatus. The people who are walking around saying that Russian interference is the reason why Hillary Clinton lost the election. Russiagate is the reason. Like, it's totally fraudulent. It's complete and total farce. And obviously so. And the fact that the news media really grabbed a hold of this and actually all together as a single voice reported on this as if it was a serious thing that was real, it's the end of it. Like, we cannot take these organizations seriously. That if they're going to come out and collectively tell us something that is overtly and obviously a bald-faced lie, like a bald-faced lie, then we can't trust them on anything that they say. And it's the decline of the media system completely, and the decline of the media system because, again, of the system of capital. That they're not interested in telling the truth, they're interested in selling you a product. And they can't sell the truth if the truth is inconvenient for people to hear. If they've got to push the truth on a people who don't want to listen to it. If you're trying to push the truth into a media environment where you get paid for making people feel emotions or feel good, right? And you get paid for clicks, you get paid for engagement, you get paid for that kind of thing. And so the best thing to do is to completely lie to everybody, manufacture stories, and connect those stories to how people feel about it so that they can feel outrage or feel good about it or feel something as long as they're engaged in it. I'm reading Matt Taibbi's Hate Inc. And one of the things that Matt Taibbi admits in that book, and I'm glad that he did, is that he got the Russian invasion wrong. He says that he didn't think Putin was going to invade. And it makes me feel good because I didn't think Putin was going to invade either. I thought that the United States would have at least a tiny bit of sanity and see how disastrous that would be for them, but apparently not. Fabala says, it's so incredibly sad. I have no idea how we could convince other Canadians to care about each other. My parents are happy about privatization and healthcare, for example. Like, it's wild. Like, it's absolutely wild that in the space of a single generation, we went from, like, Tommy Douglas talking about how universal healthcare is important to literally a single generation later, people saying that privatization is going to help. It's crazy. Yeah. For some reason, we all want to believe we're closer to the billionaires than the homeless. Propaganda works. You know, propaganda actually works. That's why they keep doing it. And it's easy to suck us in. It's easy to suck us in. And I mean, for God's sakes, we live in a country where huge segments of the population think that Jesus Christ is coming back at any moment. Like, if you believe that, you can come on back. Yeah. Amaze Brain. I like your name, Amaze Brain. Good, strong first comment here. As an American, no, you do not want privatized healthcare. Absolutely. Like, absolutely. The privatization of any system is going to lead to absolute terrible outcomes, as we are seeing. Like, for God's sakes, I just read an article about how we're being poisoned. Here's a great article from the CBC right now. A suburb in Arizona lost its source of water. Residents warn, we're only the beginning. A man in Arizona sees a glimpse of a potentially frightening future. A future where the planet is hotter, the soil is drier, and our most precious resources are evaporating. His job is delivering water, and his job is getting harder. John Hornower is now having to drive hours farther each day to fill his truck, which in turn fills the subterranean tanks at homes in an area outside Phoenix. His normal supplier cut him off. More precisely, on January 1st, the city of Scottsdale, Arizona, cut off transfers to the exurban community he serves in a desire to conserve water for its own residents. He found new suppliers farther away, then another supplier cut him off. And now he's had to go farther, spending more time in his truck, making fewer deliveries, and having to double the price he charges hundreds of his customers in Rio Verde Foothills, an unincorporated community that has lost its water supplier. It's brutal, Hornower said in an interview. The water haulers simply cannot keep up. Hornower refers to Rio Verde Foothills as a warning sign, as the Colorado River shrinks and climate change is forecast to make things worse. We're the first domino to fall. Indigenous and borderline desperate water-saving tactics are being deployed. People are now showering at nearby gyms. Some eat on paper plates. They collect rainwater in outdoor buckets and use them to flush toilets. They flush toilets less often and promote their water-saving ways with not entirely tongue-in-cheek slogans like "Don't blush, share the flush." "One neighbor started peeing outside," said one resident, Linda Vincent. "We haven't gotten to that point yet." This country, Maricopa, is a fast-growing area in a fast-growing state. A visitor can see why so many people want to live here. It's a gorgeous place. It has a subterranean Phoenix on one side, horse ranches on the other, and in the middle, golden sunsets illuminating terracotted color mansions adorned in cactus landscaping. This arid paradise, however, risks being a cautionary tale. The entire U.S. Southwest is suffering a once-in-a-millennium drought since 2000 that has forced successive cuts in water usage. The goal of these cuts: to save the Colorado River, the lifeblood of the U.S. Southwest, a key source of drinking water, power production, and crop irrigation. It's about to get even harder. The U.S. federal government will, any day, announce additional cutbacks after states missed a deadline to come to a voluntary agreement on January 31st. There's an old saying in the West, a cliche by this point attributed, perhaps inaccurately, to the author Mark Twain. Whiskey is for drinking, water is for fighting over. And in these parts, lately, it's fighting time. The competition over water allocation is pitting state versus state, Arizona versus California, primarily having clashing views on what would be a fair allocation. Even within states, it's pitting city dwellers against farmers and neighbor versus neighbor. "It's getting mean," said local horse breeder Mike Miola. "People are angry." A main flashpoint: what body to entrust with the responsibility previously handled by Scottsdale, which supplied the local water hauling trucks? Some want to create a new public agency. Others want to hire a private company. Epcor USA, a subsidiary of Canada's Edmonton-based Epcor. It recently got so heated, Karen Nabity filed a police report. This, remember, is land without local government. It was mostly just ranchers here until a few years ago, before people started building dream homes. Now it's got about 2,100 houses, which get water in one of two ways: delivered by trucks or from personal wells that draw from increasingly strained groundwater sources. Some residents want to preserve that libertarian culture and fumed at Nabity for pushing to create a public body, a so-called water district. Some threatened to show up at her house with torches and pitchforks. Friends gathered on her front porch to help keep watch in case an angry mob arrived. It did not. "Unfortunately, there were some threats," she said, while expressing hopes things may be calming down. "Luckily, I've got great neighbors." A permanent plan could take years to set up. In the meantime, residents are hopeful for an interim solution, that Scottsdale might agree to buy extra water and sell it to them. The plan would have to be approved by the city, then the county, and Scottsdale will start by considering it at Tuesday's council media. It's totally unclear where the water will come from in the longer-term solution, but here's one place it won't come from: Canada. The Canadian headquartered company Epcor told CBC News that if it's selected as a supplier, it would not be shipping water across the border. There is an international component, however, to this struggle. Canadians have a direct personal stake in the health of the Colorado River. The vast majority of certain winter greens that Canada consumes, notably lettuce, are harvested in the southwest Sunbelt reliant on its water. A pricey reminder of Canada's connection to the region came just this winter. Canadian grocery stores saw astronomical hikes in the price of lettuce last fall when another valley in California was hit by a pest infestation. "A lot of people throughout the world need to start paying attention to this," Nabity said. "Farms are going to be left fallow." There are two major problems with the Colorado River. It produces way less water than expected, about 30% less, and people use too much. The problem starts with a long ago math error. When a treaty now involving 7 states and Mexico was designed in 1922, it had been an abnormally rainy few years. The river was never going to provide the expected volumes, the 16.5 million acre feet allocated per year. Then came the population explosion. Metropolises like Las Vegas, Los Angeles, San Diego, and Phoenix sprouted in what was originally a farming region, blowing past the 16.5 million acre foot target. So take that demographic growth, add it to the original math error, throw in climate change and an epochal drought, and you've got a potential nightmare scenario. Deadpool. Deadpool is what happens if water levels drop so low that nothing flows past the Hoover Dam, collapsing the distribution system, leaving farms and homes parched in the Southwest. And it's trending that way. If the post-2019 pace continues, hence the Fed's urgent effort to reduce water usage 20 to 40% below past levels, it's a recipe for conflict. Every precious liter of water allocation is being jealously guarded. Exhibit A, Scottsdale cutting off its neighbor, Rio Verde Foothills. It's also fueling pre-existing tensions in a country already notorious for its political rift between urban and rural areas. Water level at Lake Mead trending towards trouble. For those of you on TikTok, you can't see it, but the line's going down. Line goes down. We're in trouble. Inactive pool level. Farmers versus cities. Farmers hear the complaints about them. It's true farms use 70% of the Colorado River's water. Farmers' defense is, we were here first. Cities came later. We feed the whole continent. Nancy Kaywood is the 3rd generation on a 5-generation farm south of Phoenix. Her parents, who tended this land, had a first date at a highway bar where the country legend Waylon Jennings got his start. She had to let her land fallow. Dozens of acres that could be growing wheat and barley, now dusty, all because she's had her water curtailed and is now farming on less land. She said it stings when she hears newcomers to her state blaming farmers. People who move into this area, they call us things, podunk farmers and inbreds, she said. She was at a store recently and heard 2 ladies talking, one having just moved here from California, who Kaywood recalled saying, I hate farmers. They trash our air, they pollute our soil, they use our water. I didn't claw her eyes out. Under a 1968 legislative deal, Kaywood's area faces the heaviest cuts in times of drought after California lawmakers agreed to a new canal for Arizona. She says it's time for California and cities to shoulder their share. Solutions, what they look like. Barring an end to the drought, the monumental scope of the challenge will require contributions on multiple fronts. This includes technological innovation, automated meter inspections, recycling dishwater for use in toilets, a shift to desert landscaping, already well underway here, with grass lawns rare or illegal in parts of the Southwest. Farmers are lining irrigation canals with concrete to limit seepage. They're installing drip technology. Rows of solar panels now cover fields, providing shade and reducing water reliance. There's a pile of manure on a truck at Miola's horse ranch. He points to it. That's going to turn to water, believe it or not. He says a contraption is supposed to get installed at his ranch within a few weeks to extract H2O for industrial use. Maybe the city of Scottsdale, the country of Maricopa, and the unincorporated community of Rio Verde Foothills will manage to cooperate and find a temporary solution. Meanwhile, we should be watching, residents say, and not just because they fear for themselves. Miola says he'd have to relocate if his well runs dry. And Hornewer said something has to change for the town to survive. But because this isn't just a story about Rio Verde Foothills, in the view of several residents interviewed, it's a story we'll be hearing more often, in more places, said Jennifer Simpson. It's a bigger story. This is just the beginning, said Simpson, who manages property for snowbirds. I think we're just the guinea pig of what could happen. This is not a poor community. If it could happen to us, it could happen to everybody. Oof. Oof. The water wars. What's going to tear this country apart? What's the thing that's going to balkanize this country? The water wars. The water wars, absolutely. What are you guys talking about in the chat? Cody, I don't know if I've ever seen you here. Hope you're here to be beautiful, bud. Methane, absolute pleasure to see you. I once saw a guy claiming the government should just give an allowance for people to take care of themselves instead of socializing health and long-term care. Like, what? Yep, that's the idea behind, that's the right wing, that was Milton Friedman's defense of a basic income. Just give everybody a basic income and then privatize everything. That was Milton Friedman's pitch. Is Christians still believe there's a Santa Claus? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, welcome to Water Wars 2030. Exactly, Methane. Yeah, Water Wars 2023. Hakeem doing God's work and putting Orwell on blast. Good to know. Fabella says, I have a rare brain malformation that might need surgery when I'm older that will cost me $50K under privatization or would be free under the current healthcare. But hey, who cares, I guess. Yeah, exactly. Like, exactly. So, hey, somebody's got to make dollars, right? Somebody's got to make little numbers on screens. The numbers on screens matter more, right? The little numbers on the screens that make the line go up, right? That's what matters the most. Certainly not your health. Yeah, in some places it's illegal to collect rainwater, yeah? If it's yellow, let it mellow. More like if it's brown, let it mellow, yeah? Hey, Bread Bunny, how you doing? That place sounds ugly as sin. Ugh. Methane. So what's Nestle's water use looking like these days? Yeah, no shit. The guys who are literally like sucking up all our water to put in bottles so they could ship it all over the place. Fucking losers. Cody Marsh. Wasn't there just a train derailment that's contaminated water? Yep, Ohio. And also to point out what's gone on in Ohio, there's a factory, literally yesterday, a factory exploded not far from that derailment, injuring 14 and putting one in critical care. Like, Ohio's infrastructure is falling apart, and the rest of the country's infrastructure is going to follow. Could those chemicals possibly have been shipped by pipes rather than rail and not contaminated water sources? Yeah, but pipes burst. Right? There are pipes bursting all over the place. They just don't report them. Right? This is the thing. Like, they've done the cost-benefit analysis. It is better for the people who care about dollars, who care about little numbers on screens. It's better for the people who worship money, right, to poison the air, the water, and the land than it is to actually spend any of those money dollars, which they worship, to shore any of it up and protect it. So it wouldn't have mattered. Right? Like, how do you want your disaster? Do you want it to be a burst pipe, or do you want it to be a derailed train? That's essentially what you're saying. Because these people, like, they don't give a shit. It's all just built into the cost of doing business. Yeah, here in Nova Scotia, $8 for a lettuce the size of a baseball. Yeah, $8 for lettuce. And that's if you can find one. Yeah, bok choy is a good substitute. Yeah, this may expedite bulk. I think this is not going to just expedite the balkanization of the United States. I think this is going to be absolutely central. Like the clashes and the disagreements that are going to come from the water conflict. Like, people will fight for water. Like, people will absolutely fight, and it will happen fast. Like, if you don't get water for 3 days, you die. Like, that's the truth. 4 days, like 3 or 4 days. If you don't get water, you die. That's the hard truth of what it is to be a human being. And you're telling me your water is going to dry up? People will fight. People will fight. And if you think they won't, you're an absolute fool. And the balkanization of the United States is going to be predicated on this very thing. That if anything pushes the United States towards breaking up, it will be fights over this. And there will be losers. There will be winners. Like, if California and Colorado have a literal clash, California will win. And Colorado won't forget. Like, we are going to talk about these things for decades. It's incredible. Yeah, now Bill Gates is the only farmer allowed. Yeah, absolutely. Like, Bill Gates is doing exactly the right thing. If I was in his position, I'd be doing exactly the same thing. Buy up all the land. Right? Play your game of Monopoly. Play one game of Monopoly. Right? How does this all go? We all know how this goes. That the rich buy up all the resources and all the land, and the rest of us are just chased off the board. That's something that they don't actually discuss when you play a game of Monopoly. When you go bankrupt, what happens to you? Right? The implication is simple. You just die. That's what happens. Is Bill Gates on Epstein's list? He is. Yeah, Bill Gates has been... Bill Gates was on the initial flight logs. He wasn't even on this new send-out. Like, he was always been in the midst of this. Right? It's just that Americans are so gullible and easy to con that you can just put on a sweater vest and be like, oh, gee, I didn't really realize everybody, so I'm sorry about that. Geez, I was just, sure he was in the room, but I really didn't know anything about him at the time. Gee golly. Like, Bill Gates is one of the richest men in the world, and not one assistant happened to tell him, hey, this guy's a registered sex offender, by the way. Like, literally went to jail for sex trafficking children. Should we maybe not have him in the room? Should we maybe not get on a plane of his? No, that's fine. What's the problem? No problem. No problem. Eric says, I just came back from debating libs over the war question and the coup. Once again, I'm called a tanky because I refuse to apologize for the U.S. empire. Yeah. I mean, I don't understand why tanky is an insult. Like, oh, I'm a big, gigantic tank that wins wars. Like, okay. Like, you know what's pretty decisive? Tanks. Like, I don't understand why this was ever supposed to be an insult. Like, it feels like just a confession from our opponents that we are big and strong and powerful. Like, what's the problem? Like, our enemies are so bad at finding insults that when they do find insults, they're actually compliments. It's pretty crazy. Also, I love how we think we can say no to Americans when they start demanding our water. Yeah. Once the Americans start demanding our water, they're going to take it. Like, they're going to take it. Yeah, refuse to apologize for U.S. empire, and that makes you a tanky? Yeah, to some people. Yeah. Like, tanky is like, some people just want to stop the conversation and just stop engaging. And so the way that they do that is just by calling you a tanky. Like, it's a childish thing to do, but it is like, we are going to cut off the conversation now. That, oh, you're just a tanky, conversation over. It's not much different than like a little kid being like, I'm right, you're wrong, conversation over, I win. Which is something I like used to say to my sister. Like when I was a little kid. I remember. I would get so frustrated. I'd be like, I'm right, you're wrong, conversation over, I win. And I would leave. As if that's how that works. Leon, how you doing, bud? Anyone who doesn't like NATO is a tanky now, yeah? New tanky definition just dropped. Yeah. Not unobjectively, uncritically. If you don't just regurgitate what the United States State Department says and what the news says by acting as stenographers of the State Department, then you are a tanky. Like, it's just absurd. Like, it's just absurd. Like, we are just in this state of the worship of stupidity. We love stupidity. We love being stupid. Jay Pringle says, yes, my new favorite channel. You guys are awesome. Good. That's amazing to hear, Pringle. I'm so happy. So happy to hear that, bud. Eric says, I honestly view the word tanky as a term being used by libs as an ad hominem towards anyone who refuses to go by the Western rhetoric. That's pretty much it. Yeah, exactly what Leon said. That's pretty much it. Like, that is it. Like, what else is it? It's not anything. Like, they might as well just say blib blobbity blue. Like, that, imagine if just like every liberal, when you actually started pointing out things, people just went blib blobbity blue and walked away. It's pretty much the same thing. Like, they've just all decided that tanky and walk away. Blib blobbity blue. Yeah, Majory Trash is already talking about separation of red and blue states. I mean, it's probably going to happen, dude. Handsome boy, good to see you, bud. I think I've seen you here before. If not, hope you have a beautiful comment here. Hello from Russia. If I were Putin, I would be more hard and more unapologetic to the West, because the West is playing a very bad game, and I think Putin is very soft. I tend to agree with you, handsome boy. Like, I think that Putin was basically drawn into this conflict. I don't think that he wanted it. Like, he's not really, he's not even like a Churchill type. Like, he's not even really like pounding the pulpit. I really think he's just basically doing what he needs to do in order to avoid being deposed as the leader. That I think that if he hadn't have gone in, given the pressure that he was getting from the citizens, given the pressure that he was receiving from the communists in the parliament, that he would have, the people would have gotten rid of him. And so he was forced into this war that I don't think he really wants to be fighting. That's the biggest thing that I think about Putin, is that he's not really much for this. That anytime he gets into these sorts of conflicts, like he got into a similar conflict in Georgia, or a conflict in Syria, he's always very soft. Like, he doesn't really want to be fighting, and he doesn't really want to be committing huge resources to these sorts of things. But he's just been brought to it. That he has no other alternative if he wishes to maintain power. So the choice for Putin is engage in this, or step down and watch somebody else engage in it. Like, that, we tend to fall into a fallacy, and I forget the exact name of the fallacy, but we fall into this fallacy of believing that it's the great leader, that it's actually the leaders that are responsible for all the decisions, and it's actually the leaders that are the ones that are responsible for everything. But the actual truth is that it's the people. That the people are the ones that are actually responsible for pushing things. And world events, huge forces that go well beyond. Like Putin, and I think this is true of like Lenin and Stalin and all of these guys. I think it's true of everybody. That the forces of the world matter more. Right? Like the stream, guys. Like, share, subscribe. We got 23 in the chat right now, only 6 likes. An abomination. It's free to do. Please do it. It supports the channel. Please like the channel. Like, share, subscribe. Hit all the bells. Hit all the whistles. Do all the stuff. Thank you so much. Thank you, Grinning. Thank you for being a champion, bud. I appreciate that. Broccoli Cheddar Rice says, you don't mean it when you say Bill Gates is doing the right thing. I mean, he's doing the right thing from a like Machiavellian, like psychotic perspective of like securing his own power. Like, he's doing the right thing in terms of securing his own power. That's what I mean when I say he's doing the right thing. Like, he's buying land. Like, he understands that the money dollars are worthless. Like that at the end of the day, right? The numbers on the screen don't actually matter, right? Land matters, assets matter, right? Like if you have a mine, like if you have $0 and a gold mine, you're extremely rich, right? If you have nothing, but you've got a bunch of dollars on a screen, you've got nothing. Like that's the hard truth of it. And so that's why I think this worship of money is so insipid and childish. And yet it's an absolute central pillar of our society today, is this worship of money. This whole debate over the lib was when I watched a video from the Majority Report where they were talking about how the U.S. government coups governments across the globe. My response was essentially, at one point, the lib was saying, what about Human Rights Watch? The ONSCE, they reported there wasn't a genocide. I'm like, why do we even have to even have a discussion of the issues of those institutions? What about the numerous cases where they lie? And yet, because I'm critical of those, again, we're called a tanky, yeah? I responded with, then you need to read Manufacturing Consent by Noam Chomsky, yeah? John Mearsheimer is the guy that I would point to. Like, John Mearsheimer is he's an extremely well-established academic. He's a United States military veteran. He knows his business. He understands the subject. He knows how to talk about it. He talks very clearly, very presciently about the lead-up of the war in Ukraine. He doesn't really delve into the Nazi question because I think he sees that it's not important, or at least it's distractionary from what is the central point, which is that NATO encroachment and the coup are absolutely reasons for Russia to be afraid of what was going on. And he'll occasionally bring up the subsequent Donbass war. But I think Western intellectuals who are talking about the Ukraine war, Western intellectuals who are talking about the Ukraine war, understand that discussing the Donbass war is a no-fly zone. Even when I'm talking about it, I feel very touchy about it because I worry that my YouTube channel's already been shadow banned, that's for sure, and TikTok for sure. Like I've only got 4 viewers on TikTok right now with only 1.2 likes. Like I have 100% experienced some kind of shadow banning for sure. It's like I literally will have like 5,000 likes at the end of a video on TikTok with like 300, 400 viewers. But now I've got 4. Yeah, this is a shadow banning. They are going through. They are banning us. It is absolutely happening, and and it won't be too much longer until they just remove us from these platforms. Like that's the absolute truth, right? My issue with John Mearsheimer is he doesn't talk about how the media lies to you, which is why I brought up manufacturing consent. Yeah, because he doesn't have to. Like, he doesn't actually have to talk about how the media lies to you. He just needs to talk about what is true. He just needs to talk about, like, the events as they unfolded. You know? That's what's so interesting about him, is that he's literally just like, oh, this is the thing that happened. And we know that it happened because it's what literally everybody agrees on. Like, he doesn't need to talk about the media disinformation campaign and the propaganda campaign outside of a kind of acknowledgement that it does occur. Yeah, generation, I'm just a big dumb baby. I don't know what's going on, but trust me on the environment, Bill Gates. Yeah, exactly. The West is completely stunned. Like, I just think that Western forces, like Western institutions, are largely in the pocket of privatized corporate industry. That there is no such thing as a nation anymore, not really. That the concept of America as a nation is a bygone idea. That the actual owners of the society don't actually care about any kind of patriotic nationhood or anything outside of the ability to exploit it in other people. But they themselves have no loyalty to America. That they will just happily move their shit around and poison everything. They will happily do that. And we're watching them do that in real time. That's something most Westerners don't understand at all. In Russian politics, Putin is a moderate. Yeah, I think that's right. Look, I've said it again and again on this channel, I'll keep saying it. If it was up to Putin, he would have just put his hand on the wheel and sailed right into NATO. If it was up to Putin, that's exactly what would have happened. He just would have gone click right with the West. There would have been no transition. There would have been no nothing. It would have been just a click, in you go. But world events didn't work that way, and so he had to pivot. I don't think what he's doing is at all extremist, even a little. Eric says, requiring read for any leftist, his response, I've been reading him for 20 years, and Noam is wrong about Ukraine. I'm like, okay, bud, you need to read it again, since you didn't get the point. Yeah, I mean, Noam Chomsky has always been extremely strong on domestic issues and internal domestic issues, and not terribly strong on foreign policy issues, frankly. He doesn't really do critiques of other nations very, very well. Something that Michael Parenti points out. And that's why we should be turning to people like Michael Parenti, and we should be pointing to other voices. Because and I'm more or less of the opinion that that's fine. Chomsky's whole endeavor is, I think his whole central plank on that is we can control what our government does theoretically. We theoretically have a say in what's going on in our own government. We can't really do anything about what's going on in another country. So why put so much attention onto it? And so he spends all of his time critiquing his own country because he believes theoretically we can actually alter it and change it.
Transylvanian, what new disaster in the U.S. are we talking about today? Yet another factory exploded or train derailed. I haven't seen yet another factory, except the one that happened yesterday. Another train derailment. Well, I mean, 3 last month, I think, so... Handsome Boy says he has all the power to punish them. What is he waiting for? Another agreement? Hell no. I mean, he might be waiting for another agreement, though. That's the thing. Like, I don't... Like, we all know what Putin has to do. Like, we all know what must be done. Like, if you're actually serious about analyzing this situation, if you're actually serious about being like, okay, this war has to come to an end, well, how does that look? Right? It's obvious that the Ukrainians are not going to negotiate a settlement. It's obvious that NATO is not going to negotiate a settlement. Well, what do you have to do? You have to take Kiev. That's it. There's no other course of action, because all other courses of action have been closed. And how do you do that successfully? Well, you need to push out from the border of the Donbass region that you've already seized, and you need to just start seizing territory and slowly move towards Kiev. Right? Like, there's no other way to really do it successfully. You can't just blitzkrieg push in, right? Unless, and here's something that I think is actually true, unless you want to do it American style, which is just carpet bomb the shit out of everything, level everything to the ground, destroy a bunch of people, kill 20% of the population, put a flag on the rubble and declare victory. But I don't think Putin wants to do that. Right? I don't think that Putin is interested in doing that. And which has always been kind of the issue, I should say. That if the Russians wanted to, right from the beginning, if they wanted to have, they could have just carpet bombed the shit out of the place. They could have leveled it all to rubble. Like, they could have definitely done that. They 100% have the capacity to do so. They just decided not to. Which, incidentally, American commentators were shocked by. They were just like, what? What are you even talking about? Right? Oh, dude, TikTok has absolutely shadow banned me. And it's because I'm talking about Ukraine for sure. I've glanced over and seen 200 on this very thing. I'm talking about Ukraine. I've got 1. Good for you, bud. Hope you're doing well out there. When you leave, there'll be 0, and that'll be the end of it. This live stream has 100% been shadow banned. Did anyone watch his recent Parliament speech? I heard he made some interesting comment, but I didn't watch it yet. Yeah. I sort of reported on it through a propaganda from CBS, but Odessa is a more important target than Kiev. I should say so, but Kiev is that matters the most politically. Like, that's the capital. That's the political win. Like, you can't, if you seize like all the territory, like the newspaper will read Kiev still stands. That's what it will say. And it won't be until Kiev is taken that Putin will be able to, and Russia will be able to enforce its demands. There just won't be another option, right? There just won't be another option. Because, like, if Putin holds all of Ukraine, like, what are you supposed to say? Like, what are you supposed to do? And the taking of Kiev is the moment when it's like, oh, like, it is over. Like, we are not going to be able to get that back. And Putin will be able to just install his own people. And, like, we redraw the border. You know, create new border relations. Like, he will have the political authority to just enforce that and say, this is how it is. And the Ukrainian people, the people who live in whatever's left of Ukraine, will just have to accept it. Because there's no alternative. Like, you could join some, like, underground movement or something, but at the end of the day, the Russian military is there enforcing it. They're going to put in administrative power. They're going to put in police powers. They're going to put in a parliament. They're going to put in people who are going to pass laws, and they're going to enforce those laws. Like, all of that is going to happen. And while it all happens, the West is going to still talk about how Ukraine still has a fighting chance. Like, that's going to be the most bonkers thing to watch, I think, is watching America declare victory. Like, that's going to be the craziest part. Is after all is said and done, and after, like, Putin does another big mobilization. After there's a big push in, after big groups of military are captured, right? After this huge, obvious victory by Russia is achieved, America will declare victory. Like, that's going to be insane to watch. It's going to be absolutely bonkers. Westerners, even the pro-Russia ones, are very impatient, which is why so many think that Putin is too soft and not doing enough. But to understand Russian strategic patience, you need to look at Syria. Russia has been in Syria for many years. They have always looked at the long game over the short term, even when the optics were bad, like when Turkey shot down a Russian jet. Yeah, and the West is going to talk about Chinese balloons invading. Yeah, no shit. That's exactly what they're going to do. They're just gonna pay attention to like Will Smith slapping Chris Rock or some kind of stupid celebrity bullshit that we're all supposed to be like, oh wow, did you see what Johnny Depp said in the Amber Heard trial? Oh my god, that's a very serious thing that I should definitely pay attention to. That really matters. Like, who gives a fuck whatsoever? And the I mean, it makes sense that Russia would have more strategic patience. Like, Putin has been in power since, what, 2000? So he has seen, like, Obama, Trump. Like, he's seen presidents come and go. And I've always felt that perspective, the perspective of holding power for 20, 30 years, as opposed to what we do, which was we have, like, these 4-year terms, where everything is about just doing what your owners say, and then basically running a campaign is essentially all you're doing. And how different that would be, the perspective of what that would actually look like. And I actually feel like leaders who are in power for that length of time would just naturally fall into a pattern or just like an expectation of planning. That they would just be like, oh, I'm in power and I'm going to be in power for a long time. Well, better start a plan. And that they would actually just do that. They would just be like, oh yeah, let's have a plan. Let's make a plan. Let's do some planning. Oh yeah, they're going to do that, but we can wait a little bit and that'll be fine because we have a plan, right? America has no plan. Like, there's literally no plan. America is just like the Joker. It's just doing shit. And it thinks that it's just going to win because of its enormous might. Jeremy says, would you fight if invaded? I mean, invaded by who? Like, what are we even talking about? Invaded by who? Like, if it was the Americans? I don't think that I would fight. Like, I'm not that keen on that. It seems to me that, like, don't get me wrong, I think people are right to defend themselves. But, like, if America starts invading us, like, it's fucking over, guys. Like, there's no like, I don't know that I want to say too much because I definitely would get myself in trouble if I started discussing this. Like, would I fight? I mean, yes, I'm fighting right now. It's just I'm not fighting with bullets. Like, would I shoot a gun? Probably. But, like, under what circumstances? Who's the organizing body? Who's the invading body? Plans are irrelevant when 90% of what you say is lies, yeah. Canada has already been invaded many years ago. Yeah, we all like to talk about that. Who would need to invade for you to fight against Canada itself? It would need to be Nazis. Like, Nazis I would fight. I would have no problem with that. Like, if the group of people that we're talking about is literally like, we are here to purge the society, like that I think I would have no problem fighting against. I would actually think that would be a moral imperative and a moral duty to pick up arms against that sort of force. So, like, Ukrainian Nazis, for example. Like, I think that it would be everybody's duty to fight back against a group of people who were fighting in order to round up people and purge people and do that kind of stuff. Like, I'm not gonna stand by and watch that shit happen. Yeah. Also, why should peasants care if one lord is exchanged for another? The new management would be the same as the old. That's a big reason why I'm just like, I don't see like America doing a big invasion of Canada, because like Canada is essentially a vassal state. We're not falling into any kind of disorder. Like we're very orderly when it comes to this big massive decline that we're all facing. Like it's all being very politely done. Right, we're all very like, I don't like this very much. Oh well, diddly-dee, off to work I go. Right? Facing this like universal catastrophe that we're all facing. And that we seem to be happy to face. Like that's the big part of it. We all seem to be really happy to face it. Aren't we happy to face it, Milo? Don't you think that it's so great that we're in this massive, huge decline? Yeah, you don't know what's going on because you're a dog. Isn't that nice? Isn't it nice to be a dog? Isn't it nice to just have your brain shut off or not be so aware of what's going on in the world and world politics or any of that? Isn't it nice that like you just get to hang out and get pets and loves and cuddles just for being a little floof? That's really nice. Your major concern is, where is your next treat going to come from? How am I going to get treats? Where's my next little snacky going to come from? That's Milo's major concern. And I have to say, I'm a big fan of making sure that Milo gets his treats. You know what, guys? I got to call this one early. I'm sorry, but I'm really, really tired. I'm really, really exhausted. I didn't sleep at all last night, and emotions and capitalism has been kicking my ass. So I'm going to close this one down. Always remember, guys, each and every one of you is a quantum being, walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Rebel. Revolt. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.